Who are you when no one is watching? When the noise fades, when the applause becomes a memory, when even the echo of your faith seems unanswered, what remains? The world will measure you by your victories, but the gods and the wise watch you in the desert. There is a solitude that is not punishment. It is healing in disguise. It is the pause between the old self and who you were born to be. It's not about being alone, but about being whole, an absence that reveals presence, a silence that is not empty. It is the sound of the universe trusting you to remember who you are when no one understands you, when promises feel distant, when life takes even your certainties. Only your peace remains. Many give up in the middle of the desert because they expected a path, but God gives a process, a calling that begins with loss. The Stoic understands this. They do not beg for shortcuts. They endure. What is the desert, if not the temple where only the prepared can hear? Today, we'll dive deep into the solitude of Moses and uncover the Stoic message behind the silence. Stay with me until the end. And if you feel you're no longer seeking strength, but mastery, consider subscribing. Here, every story is a compass, every silence an answer, and every pain a summons. In the desert, time does not pass, it drags. The sun hangs mercilessly in the sky, in no hurry to set, while the ground twists into living dunes, as if the earth itself were restless. The wind blows but brings no relief. It only whispers memories Moses would rather forget. He walks, one step after another. No hurry, no clear destination either, just a man and nothingness. He was once called a prince, once had slaves at his feet, gold in his robes, feasts at his table, and authority in his gaze. He grew up among marble columns, studied with the sages of Egypt, heard praises, held power, a name, respect. But all of it collapsed as if it had never existed. Moses had made a mistake. He killed an Egyptian in a moment of rage and justice. The truth was, he no longer fit in Egypt, but he didn't belong among the Hebrews either. He was from nowhere, neither pharaoh nor slave, neither oppressor nor oppressed. And now there he was, alone, no longer a prince, not yet a liberator, just a man in transition, soul stripped of identity. He fled to survive, but also to lose himself. He left behind an empire but carried guilt, doubt, emptiness. In the desert, there are no mirrors, only silence. And it is in silence that the questions grow louder. Who am I now? What have I done with my life? What is left for me? The past would not leave him alone, and the future was just a mirage. Moses tried to move on, built a new routine, married Zipporah, had children, tended flocks, learned to listen to the steps of the sheep and the rhythm of the seasons, became a shepherd, a simple, invisible man. To others perhaps, even at peace. But inside, there was restlessness, a kind of fire that wouldn't go out, a calling he didn't understand. Something consumed him, not ambition, something else, responsibility not yet claimed. Time passed, years, maybe decades. The desert remained the same, dry, mute, without signs. But Moses' soul changed. With each day, he unlearned what the world had taught him: power, haste, appearances, and learned to listen not to shouts, but to silences, not to desires, but to needs. Still, there were nights when the weight of nothingness crushed him. The sky seemed distant, God seemed absent, and the past still demanded answers. Moses' pain was not theatrical. It was quiet, silent, dense, a pain that did not scream but gnawed. The pain of one who had everything, and now had only questions. The pain of one who was once someone, and now had to be whole without any title. The Stoics speak of solitude as fertile ground for the soul. To them, a man only discovers his strength when everything around him is taken away. Moses was living that though he didn't yet know it, he wasn't being punished. He was being shaped, not an exile, an initiate. Then, it happened, not with thunder, not with spectacular miracles, but with a detail, a fire, a bush that burned, yet was not consumed. In a desert where everything dies, here was a flame that persisted, something beyond logic, something that made no sense, and yet it called. Moses approached, curious, tired, but attentive, and there, without warning, he heard a voice that did not shout but filled everything, not from outside, but echoing within. Take off your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy. The same ground that yesterday was just dust was now sacred. the same place of exile, was now the altar of a calling. The desert hadn't changed, but Moses was no longer the same. He did not kneel because he was ordered. He bowed because he understood. He realized that all of it, the years of silence, the unexplained pains, the nights without answers, were part of something greater. Not punishment, but purification. Not the absence of God, but preparation to hear him. The peace he sought was not in returning to Egypt to fix the past, nor in building a new life in the anonymity of Midian. True peace came the moment he stopped resisting what life demanded, and began to listen. As Stoicism teaches, suffering is not the enemy. Useless resistance is, Marcus Aurelius wrote. Accept what is given, and walk with reason. Moses, in that moment, accepted, not because he was weak, but because he understood. The silence did not destroy him. It shaped him. He did not leave that desert immediately, but he left changed, with a new gaze, a new posture. He had discovered that peace does not come from the absence of conflict, but from the presence of purpose. He no longer needed to prove who he was, or justify his falls. He learned that there is a kind of solitude that does not isolate, but transforms, and that there is a kind of fire that does not destroy, but awakens. The bush burned, just as he did, inside, not consumed, but now ready to return to Egypt, not as a prince, not as a fugitive, but as a liberator. At last he understood. The man who seeks to lead multitudes must first learn to lead himself. This is the path of true authority, of true self-mastery, leadership born in silence, strength built in anonymity, faith that does not need to be seen, to be real. Moses' solitude in the desert was not just a moment of escape or isolation. It was a stage of profound transition, the same kind of transition the Stoic philosophers recognized as necessary for the soul's maturity. There is an uncomfortable, yet liberating truth, shared in both scripture and Stoic meditations. No one becomes whole without first being stripped of what the world has given them. Moses lost everything that defined his identity: position, status, power, security. But it was precisely in that emptiness that he discovered what could not be taken from him: his essence. What the Stoics call the hegemonikon, the inner reason, the divine spark. The desert did not take his strength. It revealed where it truly came from. As Epictetus, the slave who became a philosopher, teaches, it's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. What destroys a man is not the desert, it is how he interprets it. Moses could have drowned in self-pity. He could have been consumed by anger, guilt, or frustration. But at some point, perhaps imperceptibly, he stopped resisting and began to listen to what his inner world was telling him, to the silence, to God. This is the virtue of endurance, not pride, which pretends to be strong, but maturity, which accepts the process with humility. As Seneca wrote, adversity reveals genius, prosperity conceals it. It was easy for Moses to be someone when everything favored him, but it was in abandonment, in loss, in anonymity, that he discovered himself as a man. A true Stoic is not one who conquers the external world, but one who conquers their inner impulses, who transforms pain into discipline, absence into purpose. In Stoic tradition, there is the concept of amora fati, the love of fate. It does not mean blind resignation, but accepting every part of life as necessary for the shaping of the self. Moses, living years in the desert without explanations or guarantees, practiced even without naming itamor fati. He was in no hurry to leave. He remained, and in remaining, he was shaped. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor and philosopher, would say in his meditations, "Be like the rock against which the waves break. It stands firm, and the raging sea grows calm around it." Moses, by ceasing to fight, the desert became that rock, unshaken not because he felt no fear, but because he learned to trust, not in visible promises, but in a calling whispered to his spirit. This silent trust, this surrender without spectacle, is the essence of the Stoic soul. The wise do not seek shortcuts, they seek understanding. They know suffering can be a school, that silence may hold more truth than 1,000 words, and that often one must cross an emptiness to find what truly matters. Moses' story, then, is not just a spiritual journey. It is a meditation on the power of solitude, on what happens when a man stops running and decides to stay, when he sheds the identity the world gave him and allows character to reveal itself. To the Stoic eye, the desert was not punishment, it was refinement. Just as iron needs fire, The soul needs silence to discover its form. Just as stone needs time to be sculpted, the spirit needs waiting to be strengthened. Like a Stoic facing tragedy, Moses did not seek quick answers. He endured, he grew silent, and finally, he listened, not with his ears, but with his soul. The burning bush was not just an external phenomenon. It was the reflection of what Moses had become, within someone aflame with purpose, yet unbreakable. This is true strength, the kind that does not need to be seen, only lived. And this strength is born in the desert. And are you in your own desert? Perhaps you're in a season where answers don't come, paths seem closed, and the people you most expected have left. Maybe you're trying to understand what you did wrong, but what if you did nothing? What if it's not punishment, but a process? Maybe what's happening to you now isn't meant to destroy you, but to reveal you. Maybe the silence that troubles you is your preparation. There are moments in life when everything slows, not because you've lost your way, but because the universe or God, or fate, or whatever you believe is forcing you to look inward. Do you feel forgotten? Like everything around you has moved forward, and only you've stayed behind? Maybe it's because what's being built in you needs more time. Deep things don't grow on the surface, and roots make no noise. Have you been forcing doors that won't open, holding on to relationships that lead nowhere, clutching plans that drain more than inspire? Maybe it's not persistence, maybe it's attachment. And the desert is here to teach you to let go of what no longer serves you. Think for a moment, who hurt you, and you still carry in your heart, waiting for an explanation or apology? What weight are you bearing that you should have left on the ground long ago? Who are you trying to be, just to fit into places you no longer belong? Moses' desert lasted 40 years, not because God forgot him, but because Moses needed to become another man. The time of transformation is not clock time, it's the soul's time, and maturity cannot be rushed. How often do we want a map, a guarantee, a voice from heaven saying, "It's okay, it will work out"? But often, God's silence is not absence, it's trust. As if the universe is saying, you already have what you need. Now walk. Maybe you're being tested not to prove your strength, but to discover your peace. The peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, company, or outcomes. The peace that survives abandonment, failure, time. The peace that remains when everything else is gone. What if the loss that pains you now is the very liberation you prayed for, just in a different form? What if what left your life, however painful, made space for something greater still to come? Moses had to lose everything he was to become who he was called to be, and maybe, so do you. Maybe what you lost was only the beginning of what you needed to lose, and what you don't yet understand will be revealed in time, because deserts don't last forever, but the lessons from them do. So breathe, don't rush, don't force, remain. If no one is with you now, may you learn to be your own best company. If everything feels uncertain, may you learn to trust the unseen. And if the voices around you have gone silent, may you finally hear your own solitude. Sometimes is the cocoon of strength, absence, the rehearsal for presence, and silence, the preparation for the new sound of your life. And when no one is with you, may you still have peace, because peace is yours, and no one can take it away. The strong man is not revealed in the noise of victory, but in the silence of waiting. The soul that blossoms in absence is not weak, it's rare. It doesn't need witnesses to exist. It doesn't need applause to keep going. It has found something the world cannot give and therefore cannot take away. This soul has learned that peace is not at the end of the road. Peace is the road. It's the ground beneath your feet when you stop chasing control and start walking with trust, not because everything is right, but because, even when everything seems wrong, something within you remains whole. This is the true gold hidden in the desert. The ability to endure, the quiet strength of one who refuses to give up on themselves. You don't need to understand everything right now, or know how or when the answers will come. You only need one decision: to not abandon yourself while you wait. Be faithful to yourself, even when no one else is. Be loyal to your essence, even when the world seems confused. Because when everything around you falls silent, the most important conversation will be the one you have with yourself. And maybe this video is more than words. Maybe it's a calling, a reminder, a whisper from the unseen, saying, keep going, even without understanding, even without seeing. because what you're living through now will one day be history. And when that day comes, you'll see every silence had a purpose, every pause was preparation, every loss was refinement. If this message spoke to you, even if silently, if some part of your heart recognized this truth, consider following this channel. Here, every story is a compass in disguise, a reminder that we're not lost, just passing through, that even deserts have purpose, and that sometimes isolation isn't rejection, it's a postponed meeting with who you're destined to become. See you in the next video, not with ready-made answers, but with purpose, with depth, with the peace of one who knows what blooms in the desert, survives any storm,